Of course, I don't know what Yahoo uses to calculate that EBITDA. Is it using trailing 12 months earnings or forward? But since we have the interest, taxes, and amortization and stuff, uh, trailing, it's probably used trailing. When you do this in practice, you should, I mean, I would cover this in a higher level finance class. It's too advanced for this level of the class. I would actually estimate what EBITDA would be in the future based on A, estimated earnings themselves, and B, relationship of interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization to earnings. But it's a little bit too advanced, so we're not going to do it here. And for Apple, let's do Apple. I'm not going to develop something for it, but I'll kind of give you an idea. 27, 26. Remember, these are PE-like ratios, right? Given that, it looks like Microsoft is cheaper. Assuming that uh, EBITDA per share is going to remain at their current level, okay? And the leverage structure of the firm is not going to change either. Uh, it takes you only 23.7 years to recover your investment in terms of assets, not equity. But the same is true for Apple, 27 years. But again, this is not taking the growth into account. So based on EV over EBITDA, I should prefer Microsoft. But I also know that, in fact, I should prefer Microsoft even more because estimated growth of Microsoft is higher than Apple. So not only based on current earnings, Microsoft is doing a much better job. And since future growth is higher, it kind of adds to it. I mean, normally you would, here's what you would need to do. I'm just going to mention this and leave it there. Price plus total liability per share minus, I'm going to call this total cash per share. EBITDA is EPS, earnings per share, plus taxes or interest per share, plus taxes per share. Actually, here's something I can do. Let me write this first. Just to give you an idea about how you could kind of project them into future. I'm not going to require you to do it for grading purposes, but in your general practices, interest plus taxes plus depreciation per share And let's call this interest taxes. I can write that as interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization times EPS divided by EPS, right? We do this thing a lot. We creatively multiply an equation by 1 or add creatively 0. So EBITDA basically is EPS times 1 plus so in order to predict or project EBITDA into future, A, you need to calculate EPS, and B, you're going to have to make assumptions what that's interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization relative to earnings are. If you can conceivably make an argument that that thing should be constant, or it may be easier to project what that ratio is going to be in the future using statistical methods, then you can actually take that into future. From this, we can even get a PEG-like ratio. Not EBITDA, I'm sorry. This should be EV. No, EBITDA, yeah. PEG-like ratio. If I divide EV, or I can write EV also as price times 1 plus total debt divided by price. So EV over EBITDA, I'm going to kind of refer to this kind of a PE ratio. The whole thing divided by EPS times 1 plus EBITDA over EPS. You can see that you can write this as P over EPS times all that other stuff. So EV over EBITDA is not unrelated to PE ratio. Okay. If the EPS that I'm using is the forward EPS, then that's forward PE. If I'm using trailing, that's trailing PE. If I divide EV over EBITDA by estimated future growth, that's basically equivalent of PEG ratio for that. So I could do similar analysis. In practice, that's typically the approach that I take. I mean, I even take a little bit more complicated approaches because a lot of times we have better estimates of growth ratio over the next 2 years compared to just overall. I normally calculate something called growth adjusted PE ratio, and, but that's again too complicated for this. If any of you guys are going to be my uh, investments class next semester, or probably more in portfolio class, we actually cover it. How many of you guys are finance majors? Just two? Any of you planning to take the investments class next semester? Finance 324? I mean, I can check what I advise you to do. And whether or not you're going to follow that is a different issue.